You lower down this a little bit. Sounds clear. Yeah, because I'm not using a lav mic this time. I'm getting super lazy because you guys don't deserve anything. No, I'm just kidding. Let's do this. Boom. Boom. And we'll flip on this autofocus. And look at that. Hey, how's it going? What is up, everyone? Hello, hello, hello. Yeah, so I kind of failed today. I said to myself, I am going to go to the studio and I'm going to go record a video or two or three off of my long list of video topics, and I did none of it. It is a cold, rainy day here in New York, and I didn't record anything, so I felt like I let my channel down, and that means I had to do something to replace it. And the year is ending, so before you guys get all bogged down with holidays, I figured let's talk about what kind of happened this year. Let's talk about the gear that's coming out, that I think is coming out at least. Let's make some predictions, because that's the fun part, right? This is just for fun. I want zero drama in that chat, and I mean it. I am not playing games tonight. So, if you don't know who I am, I'm Seth Miranda. I'm a pro photographer here in New York. I'm also a content producer for Adorama TV and some other channels. You've seen me on some like Manfrotto, Avenger, even Nikon channel and stuff like that. So, I get to have conversations with the brands pretty directly. I get to try out a lot of the gear before it's released so that it's ready, like the content is ready for release. And I just feel like people make predictions, but I feel like I'm in a really interesting position in this industry, and as a photographer that's also a lighting guy, that I can kind of navigate through what might be going on here in this industry. So I hope you guys find some of this interesting, maybe insightful, and if you guys have any opinions, I'm more than open to hearing about them, but they better be civil. I am not listening to any drama tonight, and I'm saying it like this because we've been dealing with a lot of it in comments and all sorts of things in this little geeky community of ours, and I hope that we can keep like a fun vibe tonight. All right, so is everybody with me? It looks like we got California, got Matt Irwin going down in the chat. Matt Irwin from Australia. This guy has a great channel. If you're a Nikon fan, he does a lot of great things with pre-release Nikon gear, like the 600 f4. I think you did the 400 f4.5 and some other stuff that came out. So he's got some good insights as well. So if you guys have any questions, please throw them at me in the chat. But I'm gonna go for it. So I guess since Matt Irwin's in the chat, maybe we'll start off with, I don't know. Do you guys want to start off with Nikon just to get it out of the way, because you know that's going to be a discussion. But I figure while we got Matt here, who actually has a lot of insight on that brand, we'll go for it. All right, let's do this. If you guys are ready to jump into what I think is going to be the gear releases for 2023 and the paths that some of these brands are going to take, is it's not just about the gear they release. It's about the reason they're releasing it. It's about the things that go along with it. It's about the groundwork they're laying for other things to come and things like that. So keep in mind, what comes out in 2023 has been in development since probably 2020, if not 2018, some of this stuff. So keep that in mind. So if you guys want to get into it, I want to see everybody type ready in the chat. Oh, Brandon, feel free to punch me in the face. Are you from New York? Because that sounds like a New York kind of thing to say. I'll say that right now. Let me see a bunch of readies in the chat if you guys want to get into it. Hey, Jacob, aren't you the guy that won something on the Adorama live stream? Was that you? All right, let's jump into what I think is going to happen with Nikon. So I think I have a Nikon logo somewhere over here. Woo, look at that. I got logos ready for you guys. All right, so what I think is basically going to happen with Nikon is they're going to come out hard this year. And the reason I think that's going to happen is because they've been sitting on this. Oh, the headphones were good, right? Those headphones are Jacob won headphones at the Adorama Black Friday live stream. So anyone who was in that chat, thank you guys for joining me there as well. Nikon's in a very interesting position. Nikon has affordable in the idea of what a flagship is out there in the market. They have set the bar of what their processor is, their new processor, and processors are pretty much the entire performance and handling of a camera now. So we're looking at not just like the resolution, but how many frames per second, what kind of autofocusing can it do, blah, 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 blah. The video, how many frames per second in video, does it need a crop, blah, 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 all that kind of stuff, right? So I think we're in a really interesting position with them when it comes to what their top game is, and they keep on getting better with it with firmware. We're on like firmware 3.0, which is like the 5th firmware update for the Z9. Number one, I'm going to get it out of the gate right here. I think we're absolutely 100% within the first quarter of next year. I think you're going to see a Nikon Z8. I think the Z8 was held back for various reasons. Might be a supply issue, but I think it's also, if you look at the releases that just happened, and I mean, we had a lot of them. We had a slew of Fujis that came out, the X-T5, XH2S, XH2. We had the Canon R6 Mark II. We had the OM5. We had the A7R5 from Sony. See how I remember all these names? It's kind of nuts. But they all kind of collided into each other a bit. And it's at a time where there's not a lot of money flying around the world. It's still hard to get stock and parts and things like that. And it might not have been the best time on earth. I think Nikon's Z8 is definitely going to come out of the gate within the first quarter. Not the first half. I'm saying the first quarter of next year. I think it's going to come out. What is that camera going to be? I think it's strongly that it's going to be basically a stack sensor high res. I think we're looking at a Z9 with a more affordable price point and a smaller form factor. I'm basically saying this Z9, no grip, and a bunch of money shaved off that price tag. What doesn't make sense to me is the Z7, Z8, Z9 scenario where you have 3 high-res bodies, and what's the difference? Well, the Z7 is like the budget version because it's not stacked. The Z8 is the performance of the Z9, but in a smaller body without the grip. Maybe the battery life isn't as good. Probably won't be as good, obviously, because it's gonna be a smaller battery. But I think it's basically them using all this crazy tech that they've got going on, especially the no mechanical shutter. You know, they look like they're looking to press that. It saves them money and time and production line issues of a mechanical shutter. That's a big deal. And as a consumer, you don't have to worry about life on that mechanical shutter. You just kind of have a camera that doesn't have like mileage on it a little bit, kind of, in a way, sort of. Don't quote me on that. No, I don't think it's going to be 60 megapixels. And I think all of you guys that are wanting 60 megapixels have never shot 60 megapixels. If you haven't realized, the 61 megapixel sensor, it's not a major seller for Sony. The A7R4 wasn't a massive release for them. The A7R5 is not a massive release for them. It's a good release. It's a solid camera, but it's not like killing it out there. 60 megapixels really throttles you in situations of high ISO, frames per second, all sorts of things. And then the video end of things gets throttled as well when you're looking at things that have to get like cropped or slower frame rates or things like that when you go into higher res video. So it's not everything you think it is. At some point, higher resolution sensors diminish returns. What good is the detail if there's a filter of noise over it? And then this is where a bunch of you guys go, well, I'll just use Topaz in post. I got news for you. Not everybody has the opportunity to do anything in post. People leave my studio with my shots off, you know, right off the camera. So that's really, I'm not kidding you. Reach, you can vouch for me on this. You guys have seen me, shoot live. My buzzer's going to go off like 6 times. I apologize about that. It's nobody, trust me. The other thing I think that's going to happen with Nikon is we're going to see the roadmap, the lens roadmap, kind of really flesh out and be solidified a little bit here. I think they finally got the glass coming out. I think that it's going to come. I think it's basically going to come into a place where all the glass that people are crying for, you know, the 85 1.2, the 200 to 600, I think might possibly pop out of the factory next year. I think we're going to see the really clean glass, the 1.2s, the 1.8s. Wow, you got to be kidding me. Can you guys hear that buzzer, by the way? And yes, Topaz does destroy skin, in my opinion, personally. All right. And Topaz does not work on everything. You're right. So this is really frustrating to talk while I have someone pounding on my buzzer. What that is someone who ordered Amazon, and the guy goes down on my buzzer and goes down up and down all the apartments in this building until someone opens the door so they can throw the package in and go on with their rest of their night. So this is where we're at. This is why it's super annoying, and trying to keep my train of thought when I'm not actually talking to humans is killing me. Oh my God, you got to be kidding me. Of course, it's right when I go live. What am I? I'm 9 minutes deep, 9 minutes into this. Yeah, it's killing me. So welcome to the life of doing content when you're live. As far as the rest of the year for Nikon, I think you are absolutely finally going to see a full frame ZF. The reason I think this is, like, I don't call it the ZFC because I think the ZFC is going to be basically the crop sensor, and the ZF is going to be the full frame version. I think you're going to see it because, one, I'm pretty sure it's not that hard to put out. They're either going to make it a retro-looking Z5, basically how the ZFC is a Z50 in a different chassis with the command dials and stuff like that. I think it's either going to be a Z5 or a dialed-back Z6 II. And the reason I think that is because I think they really have to hit a price point that's affordable for more of a mass market. I'm going to go down on that street real hard right now. The ZFC had to hit a market that was beyond just Nikon nerds, right? It had to go into a market of people that wanted a stylish camera that could vlog, that could look cool, that could fit in with the rest of this film renaissance that's going on for a certain aesthetic, for a certain type of person, not necessarily a photographer. So they're not looking to buy into the full-on Z system. They are looking to just get that camera. So I think the ZF isn't going to be something that a pro is going to buy for their primary camera or even a B camera. I think it's the fun camera, right? You're getting it for like the aesthetic of having like that older Nikon analog feel, the flat body, the stylized version of it. And I think they have to hit a price point that's easy enough for that type of person to be like, oh, I could do that. I'll go for it. In fact, the ZFC, I'm not even joking. I have 3 people, all that work at salons. They've never even bought a camera. They've been using their phone. All of a sudden want the ZFC. One, only because it comes in teal. One, because it looks like a film camera. And the other one, because they said, well, I want to elevate my social game. And this camera is cute. I'm not even joking. That's literally what these girls have said to me. And they're very high professional in their own right, in their own craft. So these are the people we're supposed to reach, you know? And if we hit a ZF, Nikon's going to print money with it. I think a full frame version of that retro feeling camera will just print money for Nikon. It doesn't have to be the most high performing camera out there, but it does have to like nail that market. Later on in the year, I would hope we see Gen 3. Nikon seems to drop things around October. I would like to see a Z6 III and a Z7 III with the XP 7 processor, the Z9 processor in it, and basically bring them into the mid-range battle that's going on right now. You have the A7 IV, which is a very strong camera at a $2,500 price point from Sony, which has sold massive because it was A7 III users. Now the used market's flooding with A7 IIIs, but that's another story. The Canon R6 Mark II is another $2,500 price point, but is a beast of a camera for what it is. 40 frames per second, pre-capture RAW, all these sorts of things. You know, they have false color for the video and all these other things that are happening inside that camera. They really pushed the R6 to another level, giving it the R6 II. Might not be enough for someone to upgrade from an R6 original, but R users, the original R, are definitely upgrading to that. So, you know, at least in the most case. What I will say is that Nikon has the lowest price point of like $1,800 for a Z6 II, and that's cool, but they're definitely underpowered feature-wise compared to the rest of that market. So that's where I think is they need to really start beefing up their game, is in the mid-range, which we all know is the mass market for the photo community, is that $2,000 to $2,500 price point. That's where the real battleground is. All the flagship stuff is more of a flex and what they can do and what the pros will buy into, and the Z9 definitely fulfilled that more than you could think. And I think that's where Nikon's battleground is now, is the middle range. Okay. I would like to see a refresh to the Z50. I think having a micro USB port really annoys the hell out of me on that camera. You should have USB-C so you have power delivery. I think that we need a refresh to the Z5, but I don't think they're going to do that because the Z5 is selling well still. To this day, it is like $1,100 for a feature-packed full-frame mirrorless camera. And they've got a lot of lenses to go with that camera now, especially that affordable 2.8 trinity that they're building, right? The Tamron designs rebuilt with Nikon's, add-ons to it, like the coatings, the ceilings, and all that kind of stuff. It's looking like a pretty good entry-level system. I can't think of an entry-level camera that's that low cost right now. I mean, you could look at the A7 III as coming down in price, but it's not hitting $1,100. The A7 II that they were selling forever for $900 is absolutely just like enough with that camera. There's a lot of issues with it, but people think it's amazing, and Sony even stopped producing it. So the Z5 is really a great entry-level option for people, especially when it goes up against the Canon RP, which is very scaled down, very, very scaled down of a camera. New Z50 needs IBIS. You're not going to see IBIS in the Z50. I don't think you guys realize how expensive IBIS is to put in a camera, how much space it takes up within a camera, and what it would take to make the Z50 at a price point and still have IBIS. I just don't see it happening, at least not right now. I could be wrong. There could be some assembly line thing that I don't know about, or some production thing that I don't know about. So I don't know. And then I think the other thing I think you're going to see is they're going to open up more support to third party, mainly Tamron, because there's obviously some kind of deal going on with Nikon and Tamron, right? I mean, there's definitely some trade-off of we're basically going to sell you these Tamron design lenses, and then you let us put out a Tamron. I think they have a 300 millimeter that's like Tamron, but totally for the Z mount. So I think you're going to see slowly a little bit of Tamron integration next year for the Z mount a little bit. I do not think, I could be wrong, and I know it's a hot topic right now, but I don't think you're going to see a pro level DX camera. I don't think we're going to see a Z500 next year. I think what you're probably going to see is a bunch of DX lenses come out, because they can't just have like the two lenses they have now and then think they're having a DX lineup or a crop sensor lineup. So I think they're going to look at some crop sensor options, especially since they got the Z30 out there that they're trying to sell now, which isn't really flying off the shelves for Nikon. They have to find a way to do it. So everyone that's saying they're rebadged Tamrons is actually misinformed. Let me explain to you how these 2.8 lenses are not rebadged. If you look at the actual lenses, there's Nikon ED elements in the lenses. There's Nikon coatings. There's more sealants in those lenses. There's plenty of reviews side by side that show they're actually sharper. So the design, the element layout is maybe licensed from Tamron by Nikon, but it is not a rebadged Tamron. It's not a Nikon tax. Like it's so. This is one of those moments in this industry where people go, I'm brilliant, like a pseudo intellectual, and it's kind of like, no, you're kind of stating an obvious thing that isn't even the reality of things. So I think it's kind of tough. And Marcus is saying that Nikon really needs to advertise differences because people misinformed on this. They kind of don't, because they're selling regardless. Honestly, they're doing really well in those lenses. How far can they push autofocus? What will the future tech and autofocus, in your opinion, look like as far as Nikon goes, or as a whole? Right now, I think people that complain about autofocus need to get their heads checked. Every brand has great autofocus, except for maybe some of the lower tier. But I'm going to get into that a little bit, and I have a lot to say on that. But autofocus right now is trying to be predictive. It's trying to sense where the body is and where an eye will be on a human being. I think you also have to realize that a lot of it rests on the motors inside a lens. You could have a Z9 with a sick autofocus, but if you have a lens on there that has like a single motor on it, yeah, it's not going to be as fast. And when you think it's missing focus, it might not have just reached focus, critical focus at that time mechanically. And that's what upper echelon lenses are, is more motors, faster motors, things like that. So look at the Matt, what's the name of that motor that you guys got in the telephotos? It's the magnetic one, right? The Silky Swift or whatever they're calling it. I think people really need to figure that out. Patrick, do you think internal memory will be one of the next evolutions? I hope so. I would like to see cameras have something on board so that you're not left out in the cold. if you don't have a memory card, or you're overflowed, or you're out there in the field and all your cards are full and you just need like 64 more gigs. I would hope so. Leica did it. What was it? Zeiss put out the ZX1, I believe it was called, that had 500 gigs or a terabyte of SSD in it. That being said, if that memory fails, what do? You throw the camera out? Or like, that's another thing that could fail on a camera. So I'm not sure how I feel about that. And then the last thing I'm going to say about Nikon is I think we're going to see firmware. I think there's still firmware to be had for the Z9. I think Matt feels the same way. They haven't used the HE Star compressed RAW enough. We could totally see the HE Star being used in pre-capture RAW, not just JPEG, 30 frames per second RAW, not just JPEG. I think me and Matt Irwin are in agreement on that. So I would hope that we see some firm updates coming down the line even more. And of course, I would love to see the Gen 2 bodies get firmware. I think everybody wants to see the Z6 II and Z7 II get firmware updates. They haven't even hit 2.0 yet. So I don't know if there's a hardware issue. I don't know if they just haven't prioritized it. I know they're all in on the Z9 right now, but hopefully they just go, all right, let's get our mid-range some attention, because they absolutely need to give the mid-range some attention. And as far as anything else in the lineup goes, I think APS-C will get more focus in like 2024. Personally, I don't think it's a critical market right now for Nikon. I think that it is a market, but right now there's a full frame market that's ever growing more and more by the day. And it's not discrediting the APS-C, but they have to put the resources they have where they need them at the moment. And every brand has been that way. I mean, look at Sony. Sony stopped production of the A6000 series to get ready to make A7 IVs, to be able to produce A1s to get them on the shelves. It hasn't been a priority, you know? So that's my spiel on Nikon, I think. What do we do? Z8, a bunch of lenses, the full frame ZFC, maybe some DX lenses. Hopefully Gen 3 hits in October, end of the year, October, I'm hoping. Firmware updates, some more Tamron support I think is going to happen, and that's kind of where I'm landing on the Nikon. Everybody good on that? I hope that was good. Wow, there's 140 of you in the chat. Thank you guys for joining me. I know I kind of put this up here last minute. I had nothing going on tonight, and it's gross out, so thanks so much for joining me, guys. Let's go into the next brand, though. If you guys have any questions, please hit them up in the chat. I'll try to catch them. I'm trying to rant, deal with a buzzer on my door, and look at the chat at the same time, so forgive me if I miss anybody. Seth, a lot depends on politically on China. Yeah, so China, hold on, my chair's falling apart, hang on. Oh. So China is definitely having some problems, and I don't think people realize that if one or two parts of a camera that has thousands of parts are waiting to be delivered from China, the whole camera's held up. All production's held up. So I think and I don't think these brands are numb to it. I think they're going, okay, we have to come up with contingency plans. I mean, Nikon moved all their factories to Thailand, but doesn't mean that they don't need the parts still coming from China. So yeah, there could totally be problems with that as well. All right, Nikon. I just think Nikon's in for a big year. They've set up a lot of pins to knock down for 2023, and it's super exciting. I think, especially with what they've been putting out, they've been knocking it out of the park with the telephoto game, the pro end lenses. Now we got to see some other things like that 200 to 600 millimeter telephoto that all the birder old guys that are DMing me every day crying about it. Hopefully it just comes in already. It's just killing me. All right. Everybody good on Nikon? Anything else on Nikon? If you're good on Nikon, tell me you want to move on. We can move on. So also, don't forget, Nikon's got a bunch of f1.2 stuff still saying it's coming down. Ricci joins me after my Nikon spiel. Ricci, I just did 23 minutes on Nikon while my door buzzer was going off, driving me crazy. Come on, Ricci. Come on, Ricci. And if you guys are Nikon fans, Ricci is an absolute resource to this industry, a great photographer in his own right, and incredibly technically sound. So go follow his channel and Matt Irwin's channel as well. Our Nikon flash is dead. That's interesting. So I don't know, right? They haven't done anything since the SB5000, which has got to be like, what, 10 years by now? And a lot of Nikon photographers like Joe McNally are moving into pro photo speed lights. I, for one, am totally down with camera companies not making their flashes. I'm totally down with the lighting companies making flashes. And one of those reasons is the rest of my lighting is going to be made by another company. And I want to make sure that my speed lights in color, in performance, in tone match the rest of my lights like my A10s do for my Pro Photo system. I don't really care about the camera company having it as long as they're working in collaboration together, which Nikon has said they're absolutely working with Pro Photo and Nissan tight. So I'm fine with them not making any more flashes. I really am. I think that we have a lot of lighting companies that kind of bring a lot to the table, and let Nikon focus their resources on the cameras and the lenses, because I don't think the speed lights are going to fly out for them. I really don't. I did not do Pentax yet, Robert. Don't worry about it. That's going to take me 2 seconds. Pentax is going to take me 2 minutes to do, I promise. All right. All right. Okay, so that's Nikon. Keep your eye on them. So Lumix, I have a lot to say about Lumix, Hassan, and it's a lot of positive stuff. So hang tight on that. Okay, so I'll give you guys a vote. Do you guys want to get into Canon, Fuji, Sony, Lumix, or OM? Write your pick in the chat. I will go into it. Canon, Sony, Fuji, Lumix, or OM system. Write it down in the chat, and we'll go into that one next based on your responses. I got Fuji, one with Canon, Fuji's in the lead. Fuji, oh my gosh, look at all these Fuji kids. Look at all you Fuji kids. Leica is a tough one. Leica's a tough one. I could talk about it. Is Ab in the chat? Where's Ab? Hey, what's up, Ab? What's up, buddy? All right, everybody wants to go into Fuji. We'll go into Fuji. All right, hang on. I made sure to get these logos right. Look at that. I got more logos for you guys. Look, hey, look at this. Hey. All right. Fuji, right out of the gate, 100%. They have done the right thing by not promising new cameras and then taking a year to bring them to market. I'm looking at Canon R3, took like a year to get into people's hands after they announced it. Fujifilm was like, look, we don't have any parts. We're not going to have any stock. The Gen 4 series, the X-T4, all those cameras, we're just not going to have them, so chill out. They didn't say anything. They went quiet. Then they dropped it all in one shot. XH2S, XH2, and the X-T5. I shot all of them. You can find all of those videos on Adorama TV. The X-T5 video, by the way, was super fun. And yes, I misspoke in that video. That camera is not double the resolution. I meant to say double the megapixels, but I screwed up. Sorry about that. What I'll say is they are super hungry and aggressive for GFX. So in my opinion, based on just what they sound like when I talk to them, it sounds like a new GFX is going to hit next year. I think they're really looking to push this camera for video. And hear me out on this. They truly believe that their GFX system adds something to the cinema space by being the largest surface area sensor that still has autofocus. And they're gorgeous sensors. They're gorgeous color, incredible bit depth, beautiful dynamic range. They're absolutely beautiful. So if you ask me which GFX they're going to put out, I think we're actually going to see another 100. I don't think they're done with that 100. They're really standing out in the market with that 100. I got it right here. I got the GFX 100S. I know Ab has both GFX 100s, and it's a phenomenal camera. And I shot the prototype of the original GFX 100, and back then it was incredible. So, and I got tattooed in Tokyo, hand poked. So please check out my GFX 100 video on Adorama TV if you want to watch me photograph myself getting tattooed. So yeah, I think based on the way they're talking, it really sounds like the GFX is getting a refresh. And here's my prediction. One, I think that it's going to incorporate CF Express Type B somehow. I think they've been leaning on SD. I think it's throttling what the camera can do. I think the key to getting some speed out of all that data is going to be the CF Express Type B memory. I hope they do that at least. They haven't really said anything about it, but they have put CF Express Type B in their other cameras now. So it just seems like the natural progression, right? I think they're probably going to do something where they beef up the video specs and leave the stills kind of where they are. I can't imagine them doing much spec-wise stills Like, what are they going to do? Like, more frames per second or something? I don't know if they can. Maybe after they get CF Express Type B. I don't know. I know it's in a niche market, but partnership Fujifilm with Frame.io should be a big thing. You know, why don't you expand on that, Patrick? Because the Frame.io is it's interesting, but you have to be part of Frame.io in order to benefit from that, I feel. So it's one of those things. It's the GFX is an incredible camera. It could definitely use a little bit of advancement in low light autofocus, in my opinion. But other than that, shooting this camera is such a joy in the studio. I really love what I get out of this camera. I can't tell you enough like how much I love having this thing. What we might see is some more GFX lenses as well, because what Fujifilm tends to do is when they introduce a camera, they kind of make sure they have a lens to kind of partner up with it. So I think we might see that pop out as well. The X-T5 also had a 30 millimeter macro lens that was introduced as well. We had it and I forgot to do the video on it, so sorry, Fuji. Other than that, that's kind of what I'm thinking is going on. I also, well, what else I have in my notes? Oh, so I would hope, but I don't think it's going to happen, but I would hope that we see a new X Pro. You know, the X Pro 3 has been out for quite a while. I would like to see what they could do with a little bit more attention to that camera. I think it's an underrated camera. People that use it love it. People who haven't touched it never go near it. But I don't think we're going to see anything from the X Pro. What we might see from Fujifilm is attention to this is going to sound wrong, but stay with me. Attention to the same market Nikon put the ZFC out there for. The aesthetic people that want a great camera that does cool things. And I think that's where the XS10 came out, was a very sleek, small, powerful camera for what it was, but it was an expensive vlog camera, right? So I think what's going on is they're going to revisit the XS10 and make it even better. And not that it isn't great right now. So I think they're going to be the elegant higher end of the vlog camera. Does that make sense to you guys? Like a really clean aesthetic, really great, beautiful camera that's meant for those people that were only going to buy that camera and not really get into a system. I think they're going to do it. That's what I think. So other than that, I think we're going to be seeing maybe some more lenses. They seem to be revisiting some of their lenses to put more blades in the aperture so that it looks like a smoother bokeh. I don't know, but it seems like that's what they're going with. What's going on, Mosman? If that makes sense to you, I hope does it? I hope my reasoning kind of makes sense. I'm not just kind of like spitting out like a wish list here. I'm trying to be realistic about it based on the way they're talking, and the way they're releasing things and where we are in the world as far as manufacturing goes. So that's where I think Fujifilm, if anybody has anything else on the Fujifilm, let me know. But I'm throwing my money down on a new GFX. That's where I'm throwing my money. I mean, not buying it because I got this one, but, you know, as far as releases go. All right. So do you guys let's go hang out in Canon land. I feel like we should go talk about Canon. You guys want to get into Canon, type Canon in the chat. I want to see some energy in this chat. And by the way, 122 watching and only 53 likes. Patrick Baylor says tilt shift lenses for GFX. Yeah, they said that was coming. They actually showed tilt shift lenses are on the horizon for the GFX, and what a great system to have GFX lenses for, you know? Yeah, let's do Canon. All right. I know the one Sony guy wants to talk about Sony. All right, let's talk about. Oh no, I messed up my cool thing. Okay, Canon. Canon, I think, is a little all over the place. Canon's a great brand, great company. I think that they're struggling right now selling the R10, and I can say that because I have insight from retailers, right? R7's doing okay, nothing, not groundbreaking, but it's doing pretty good for what it is. So I think what they're going to do is throw down a ton of support and start pushing out APS-C lenses that they have lined up for the RF mount. That being said, I think this is the year that we see the RF mount get a ton of boost. And what I mean by that is, one, I think we're going to see an RF mount M50. I think we're going to see the vlog camera from Canon come out with the RF mount, not the M mount. I think this is the year we might see that. I will say that the one area of Canon's game that is suffering from the RF mount is the Cine line. So hear me out. The C series, the C300s, 500s, all that, they're very hard to swap the mount over to RF. However, red, you can swap on to an RF mount, no problem. They're still on this EF mount, where EF mount lenses are being discontinued left and right, and rental houses, which are heavy for cinema, are having a hard time keeping up with repairs for the EF mount glass. So I think they're finally going to be like, all right, here's our C series with RF mount, like the C70, like the R5C. I think they're going to finally pay attention to their cinema line for the RF mount and get that glass moving out there. On top of which, they're going to unify the RF mount for their entire lineup, from the APS-C, which they've just done with the R10 and R7, to the M series cameras that they see sell well, but are in their own little world with M mount. I think they're going to bring them over into the RF world. I think that's going to happen this year. And as far as the cameras go, I think the RP is in a desperate need for a refresh. That camera is so bare bones for the full frame market, especially next to the Z5, which is like $100 more and gives you like 10 times the camera. I think they're going to have to revisit the RP. You guys with me? There's like no... Am I live? This chat is frozen. I also am looking at what's going on with this R1. Where is it? Is it a thing? When you ask Canon directly, and I'm talking Canon behind closed doors, Canon no one's looking, Canon that isn't going to cause a rumor mill. When you ask them about the R1, they go, we have nothing. Nope, not sure what you're talking about. Nah, Chops. I think you're the only one that needs Sony. Everyone wanted Fuji. Now I got Canon. We'll get to Sony, I promise. That being said, RF mount, I think, is going to have a real strong foundation during 2023. The R6 Mark II is killer for the camera that it is. It's just, I'm wondering what's going on with the non-backside illuminated sensors. I don't know why they're not utilizing them outside of the R3. A lot of people think we're going to see an R5 Mark II. The reason I don't think you're going to see an R5 II, even though I think this is totally a good time for it, it still sells exceptionally well. And if you look at the specs, man, what is going on with my neck? If you look at the specs of the R5, it's holding its ground against what's out there next to it. You can talk about overheat issues, which aren't as prevalent as you may think. And they've addressed them with the R5C for the people that are going to deal with it. You know what I'm talking about? So the R5C is selling really well to the people it's meant for, which is higher end video guys, cinema guys that need, and when I say guys, I mean people. It could be male, female, whatever. People that shoot video that are above hybrid, that are needing a second camera to match their Canon cinema line, that interface that matches so they're in the same headspace while they work, things like that. So I think that we might have no real reason for an R5 Mark II at this time, and it would put a lot of stress on them to produce and try to sell it, honestly. So I don't know. I really don't know what to say as far as that goes. But yeah, that's kind of where I think Canon's going. Everybody good with that? Any questions on this? Why hamstring themselves with no third-party lenses thing, especially when they only have a few lenses? So this is another thing that people don't realize. Look at what happened to Sony. Sony did brilliantly to launch their camera brand off their camera line off the ground was like, look, we don't have a lot of lenses, so just use whatever lens you want. E-mount, everybody take the E-mount, do whatever you're going to do with it. Now look at what Sony's doing. They are trying to get you to buy Sony E-mount specific G Master lenses. And why? Well, you can't have focus breathing compensation unless you use G Master. If you have an A1, you don't get 30 frames per second. Unless you have G Master, you only get 15 frames per second. They're making reasons. The IBIS now, if you want the full IBIS, it's got to be a G Master lens. They're chasing down the people that weren't buying G Master to then almost rebuy all their glass. So before Canon puts out the lens mount to Sigma or Tamron or whatever, they're basically going, no, let us get our whole lens line out. Let us try to sell our lenses first. And eventually they'll let it go to a third party like they did with the EF mount. And Nikon's slowly opening up the Z mount. We're seeing Tamron lenses come out. We're not seeing anything Sigma wise. There are some autofocus third party lenses out there, and they're not being sued, which is interesting. So I don't know. I don't think the R1. I couldn't tell you where the R1 sits. I don't know if it's the reason I'm having a trouble with the R1 is because I'm wondering one of two things. Are they trying to do something that the camera just isn't getting there for them? Like, are they not getting a fast enough readout speed for whatever they're trying to do on the sensor? Or are they achieving something amazing, but they can't get it to production at a cost where the price can be even affordable? If the R3 is $6,000, do you think there's a market for a $7,500 R1? And if so, is it worth it? Because it might be sold to a fraction of a fraction of a fraction that's out there. Maybe rental houses, who knows? But it's going to be a camera that's going to be so out of reach for people at that price point. So I wonder what it is. Are they chasing a global shutter? Canon has in the red Komodo, it's a Canon sensor. It's global shutter. It's APS. It's a Super 35, so it's a small sensor. Could they be chasing global shutter? I don't know. But something's holding it up. If it's even a thing. They say the R3 is not their flagship. Is there an R1 coming? I don't know. So the R1 just seems like this thing is half fable because Canon themselves are not even really putting out any information on it. Yeah, I think Canon would do well to move their M cameras to RF as well. I think that they are really putting that camera series into a bubble that it's really hard to get people to graduate from that to an RF mount. It's hard for people with RF mount to go buy into the M series if they can't bring their lenses over. So it's tough, right? It's almost like a whole nother camera brand. It's kind of weird. So that's where I'm at. Any chance of retro style tactile camera from Canon? Absolutely not. And I'll tell you why. They have never, not once at all, in any way, shape, or form, acknowledged their heritage. Nikon has definitely done that with the DF back in the day. Sony doesn't really have a heritage to check back on unless you want to look at Minolta cameras. And Fujifilm has always held down that type of aesthetic. I don't think Canon even cares about it, to be honest with you. All right. Well, that's where I'm at with Canon. I hope that was worthwhile. We did Nikon, we did Canon, we did Fuji. I think I got one Sony guy in here. By the way, you got 134 viewers and only 76 likes. If you guys could hit like, it really helps out this channel. It's easy for you to do. Also, I am just 50 subscribers away from hitting 11,000 subscribers, and thank you guys for being part of this. I really appreciate all support on this channel. I know I'm very slow to uploading new videos. It's really hard for me when I'm working on all these other channels, plus my freelance career. It's a lot, guys. It's a lot. Two Sony guys. Listen, look at what just happened in the last few years, right? Everybody, all these YouTubers are telling you, Nikon's going out of business. Oh, Canon's dinosaurs. And now we're all of a sudden, it's like, oh, not everybody's a Sony shooter, huh? Oh, okay. So, we're looking at that. We're looking at an industry that was a lot of hype, a lot of rhetoric, a lot of perception. But if you look at what the biggest Uh, you know what the most amount of type of camera that's out there is? Canon DSLR is still number one out there. The 5D Mark IV still sells to this day brand new. Still sells to it. So, you know, I think Sony question. Can anyone explain their CF Express Type A decision? I can't figure that one out. All right, let's talk about Sony and let's talk about their memory. Sony has had a history of doing proprietary memory stick duo. They've done a lot of things in a lot of their electronics that have been proprietary like that. Now, CF Express Type A is not proprietary. It is an open memory format. However, what CF Express Type A is basically the same thing as CF Express Type B, except it physically doesn't have the same RAM chips on there. Like, it doesn't have the same chips. So the problem is SanDisk and other major manufacturers were like, we're not even going to go into this because it's already outdated in their opinion. This is their words to me, that it's basically semi-outdated because there's already a memory that is more capacity, cheaper to make, and definitely faster. Now, what Sony decided to do was give you guys the smaller form factor and basically dual purpose memory card slots, which is very cool idea. That is a very, very cool idea. The problem with that is you're either going to spend a lot on SD cards, which still aren't there as far as the speed goes, and then spend more in the camera for the in-camera buffer instead of what other manufacturers are doing, which is letting you buy the buffer technically by deciding which memory cards you want to shoot with. And the problem is that if there's not a lot of cameras that use it, meaning a handful of Sony cameras, the price stays high. You have the A7 IV, the A1, the A7S III, and the A7R5 are the cameras that use it. I think the FX3 uses it as well. These are the cameras that are using it out of an entire market of hundreds of cameras. It's tough. It's tough. So you don't have to buy CF Express Type A. You can absolutely use SD cards in those cameras. You might lose some of those feature specs, but this is kind of what it is. What I don't agree with is if you sell someone a $3,000 camera and you're going to tell them they have to spend another half the price of the camera just on memory, that's a tough sell, right? I mean, you're looking at $1,000 memory cards that aren't even close to the capacity and speed. It's tough, but you absolutely have an option to use SD, which can be very cost effective. You know, it's interesting. So I keep saying, Sony seems to be getting more and more proprietary, meaning, and this is totally fine if you are in the Sony ecosystem and you like it, then there's no problem with this. Like I stated, the Sony G Master lenses give you full features of the camera, which not third parties don't, right? Like I said, focus, breathing compensation, the frames per second, IBIS, all this other stuff. And then you have the shoe, which is absolutely proprietary to Sony because Canon has a data shoe now, but it's still a standard size and can handle anything that a normal foot is in a hot shoe. The Sony isn't. And also the memory now, right? So the memory seems a little proprietary by accident, kind of. What I think Sony was banking on was to have enough of a user base at this point and then basically keep them. And it probably is doing that. And if you like Sony, there's nothing wrong with it. What's the difference? That's what works with your camera. That's what you get for that camera. That's it. But new users have to kind of know this and go, is this a deal breaker for you? And if not, which I'm sure a lot of people don't care, it's fine. You know, the whole thing is that they're not going forward, every camera that Sony produces is going to include CF Express Type A. So will there be enough cameras in Sony's lineup to make enough of a demand for CF Express Type A for there to be lower cost options for CF Express Type A? That's really the question. Talk me out of an A7R5, leaving an SL2. If Z8 was out there, no discussion, but now I'm entertaining buying a VCR to take pictures. I would say give it the first half of the year and see what happens. You're going to see the A7R5 in users' hands, not reviewers. You're going to hear from people who use it, maybe similar to the way you use it, right? So, you know, for me, the problem with the A7R5 isn't that it's a bad camera. Not at all. My problem with it is that the specs don't really make sense to me. You have all this resolution, but then it's going to have a tough time in lower light with noise issues. You have all this resolution, but then I only get 7 frames per second in uncompressed RAW. You get 10 frames per second if you crush down the RAW a little bit. I don't know if I want to buy a camera that I'm going to have to do that with, right? So for me, it's a studio camera, but then it has amazing stabilization. The A7R5 stabilization is phenomenal. I tried it out. It's great, but I'm going to use it as a studio camera. In my opinion, that's where the feature set lies. And then the video functionality is rough. I mean, 4K 60 is cropped. 8K has no IBIS. 8K is cropped. So it's kind of like you're buying a brand new camera today for the 61 megapixel sensor in controlled lighting situations. That's how I view that camera. And some people might want that, and that's totally great. If you want that, it exists, and you can go grab it now. The Z8, no one even knows what the hell that thing is, man. So that's why I'm saying, like, you know. So, yeah, so Marcus is saying that if you got high enough megapixel studio system, just get a GFX. It's not that easy. The GFX is still $2,000 more than a full frame 60 megapixel camera. So it's still $2,000. That's a big gap. But if you're going to start making me shoot slower for higher res, I might as well start looking to spend more for a medium format system. Once you start losing the speed and all that stuff, like, I don't know, full frame, I don't like the trade-offs just to get 61 megapixel that I don't need. But that, regardless, you might love the 61 megapixel to shoot like really high detailed fashion in the studio and crop in super tight on the buttons, the yarn, the weaves, the details on things. You might love it. You might love it for editing. You know, you might love the way Sony operates, and you might like the way the interface is, and that's the camera you want. Then that's the camera you want. You know, I'm just saying. As far as what I think Sony's going to be doing, I think they're going to start looking at the A6000 series again. They stopped production of that series of cameras so that they could have parts and focus on the A7 IV, the A1. They needed to stock the shelves of those cameras because they were selling like crazy. And good on them, right? They got those cameras out there in the market. What we'll see now, though, is they need to kind of clean up the A6000 series. It is confused, man. No one can tell you which camera stands where. The A6000, A6400, A6600, A63. What are each one of these doing? What's the difference? No one knows, really. It's such a confused line. I think they're going to simplify it, and I think they're going to put out a new one that basically like ties up all the loose ends and simplifies the lineup for crop sensor people. What people don't realize, though, is the A6000 series is primarily a gateway for video shooters to get into their system, which is super smart. It's very good for like gimbal ready camera setups and stuff like that. It's a small camera, right? And they put out a bunch of crop sensor lenses for it. I think they put out a trio of them last year, and it did really well for them. So I think they're going to visit the A6000 series personally, and I think it'll sell really well for them. I really do. I think you're going to see the A7 III drop in price. I think that's basically going to turn into their entry-level full frame. I do not think it's going to hit like Z5 RP price of like $1,000, but I think it's going to drop heavily down there, you know? And I was going to say also the CV Express Type A cards, I think they themselves are going to try to find a way to put them out there at a higher capacity, but I don't know if they're going to come out with a CV Express Type A that is more affordable. But I definitely think they're going to add more capacity. I think they can, someone told me, and I don't think, based on who they are, I believe them, that there is a possibility of getting CV Express Type A up to 1 terabyte. It's a fable. It's a myth. right now, but if it becomes a reality, I could see Sony totally throwing bank at that. If you want to do 8K video, you're going to want a lot of space on that card. Trust me. 8K video is a memory chewer. It is bananas. All right. So that's where I'll leave that. Is there anything else on Sony you guys want to touch on? I think they're going to start looking at their cinemas line again. You know, they also have a cinema line. That's something Nikon doesn't have, is a cinema line. So they keep on trying to backdoor the Z9 in as a cinema camera, but it's really not a cinema camera. The A9 III, I personally think the A9 III is the camera for them to put out. And the reason I say that is an A1 Mark II isn't the answer. You need a lower resolution speed demon for your journalists, for your sports guys, for your pros that are out there doing events. You need it for the people that are out there in the world shooting in uncontrollable lighting conditions. The A9 II has been aging out there, and the A9 III would absolutely sell and upgrade in a pro path. They should do it. What I'm going to tell you is, based on what I'm hearing from brands here, it doesn't sound like there's a plan for it. It doesn't sound like there is, but Sony does surprise out of nowhere sometimes. So there could be. Will it be next year? I don't know. People are saying they're going to use the A9 III for the Olympics, the cycle of the Olympics. So maybe that's an indicator. But I will say that there's a lot of talk from some bigger channels that they should just abandon the A9. The A9 for pros would sell, an update would sell like mad, I think. And keep in mind, some of those pros are going to buy 2 of those bodies at a time. It's not going to be just like, oh, I upgraded my body. Like, no, they're going to buy 2 A9 IIIs, you know? So it's its own part of the market. Nikon does not have this. They don't have a lower res speed demon. They don't have a lower res Z9 that's out there. Canon's is a $6,000 body. You know, when the A9 original came out, Sony wasn't established in the market for pros yet, and they put it out at a $5,000 price point, and it didn't sell, and within a couple months, they dropped it to $4,500. And now it's basically a camera that can be around the $4,000 price range and just be a speed demon. And I think they absolutely 100% should put out an A9 III. Will they? I don't know. I hope they do. It's a healthy camera for the market. It'll definitely help things out. So I hope that's it. Any thoughts on A7C2 or C version cameras like the A7R, A7S? I don't think the A7C sold enough. I don't think it did that great. I think it sold okay, this is going to sound warped, but hear me out and think about it for a second. The A7C is almost like them trying to do a ZFC. They're going for like an aesthetic type camera rather than a performance type camera, a spec heavy type camera. Did they hit that market? I don't really see that much A7C out there. And if I do, it's in people that aren't investing into the rest of the Sony lineup. I don't think I've seen anybody with like an A7S III also get an A7C, you know, but I could see somebody get an A7S III and then maybe like one of the other cameras, like an RX 100, whatever, Mark Bazillion or whatever they got. You know, it's like, it seems like it's on its own place. I think that it had a rough start, especially the EVF was a rough start for them. I get what they were kind of going for, but it felt like a glued together camera from different parts. And they were like, this might sell. And they put it out there. Some people bought it. Some people love it. But I think that was the fit. You either ignored it or you love it. And that's where that sits. So I don't know. I don't think they want to put too many chips on that one. And keep in mind, Sony holds on to models like crazy. They hold on to models for like forever, and their line becomes super bloated and confusing for consumers. So it's kind of tough. There will not be a Sony medium format. No way. No way. No way. No way. No way. They want to sell you that high-res A7R5. Why would they sell you a medium format camera and then a whole new lens line on top of that? Are you crazy? There is no E-mount that's going to be ready for medium format. So they're going to do another mount? Get out of here. Don't even start with that. Medium format Sony. What is this? Who brought this guy? Who brought this guy? What gear will Seth buy in 2023? Way too much. I'm planning on updating my MacBook when the M2 comes out. I'm trying to tell myself not to buy a vintage lens that I'm seeing out there right now that just came in, and I don't want to spend a few grand on it and chase a few grand for the rest of the year. But I'll tell you this right now. I upgraded all my lights. I'm very happy. I might buy one more light and a ton of modifiers, and that's about it. Hopefully. That's what I say now. In December of 2023, if I'm still alive, you're going to hear... you're basically gonna be like, oh, you bought a ton of other stuff, man. And I'm probably gonna buy more lenses for the Z mount, honestly, because I'm really in the Z mount. You're looking at me on a Z6 I. I got the Z9, I got a Z6 II as a backup. I'm wondering what the Z8's gonna be, so I don't know. I found your channel, been binge watching. I always said I hate Flash. Now I know I didn't know what I was doing. Hey, listen, a lot of people say that, Joseph, and the big important part is that you are trying to change that. You're trying to change what your abilities and knowledge base on something are. Now we go work on it. We try things out. We approach it knowing something rather than going in blind and going, I don't get this, and getting frustrated. The key is to keep you guys shooting. That's the key. And then you'll always get better. That's what it is. All right. But welcome to the channel, Joseph. And please join the Discord if you haven't. That would be awesome. We have a community in the Discord that you can share your work, ask all the questions 24/7. There's people in that Discord to answer your questions, including myself. The link is in the description of this video. Please join it. Then go to the rules and accept the rules, and it unlocks the rest of the chat. And welcome to the community. All right. What didn't we talk about? Let's go into Lumix. This one I think is super interesting. Lumix, huh? Look what I do for you guys. Look what I do for you guys. Look what I do for you guys. All right. Hold on, I gotta get some water before I die. Man, I feel like I've been yelling into this microphone. Look, the gear is the fun part, right? All the stuff is that we get to have in our fingertips is so much fun. And then you vote with your dollars whether it's going to stick around or is a success. The reviews are kind of jacked up out there. You know what, do you guys mind if I go on like a tiny rant before we go into Lumix? Do you guys mind about that? I'll go into Lumix. I promise you you'll be like, okay. But do you mind if I go on a little bit of a rant? I'm seeing a lot of reviewers out there getting a camera for like 5 seconds, not even checking if they have the firmware updated because they're complaining about certain things that I'm like, wait a second, that's been changed in firmware. And then they're making a whole thing about them getting rid of the camera. So to me, it's kind of like misguided, and they're feeding into people that just want to hear if they don't own something then that thing sucks and forget about that. But the reality is there's so many things out there that get downvoted by reviewers that end up being successful once they're in the hands of the people that actually wanted it in the first place. And one of the biggest examples of this, and you can call me a fanboy here, but one of the biggest examples of this is the Nikon original Z series. When the Z came out, 6 and 7, and remember, I did the launch of these cameras. I was shooting prototypes with no firmware in these cameras. I was on day one of this at Nikon headquarters. When it came out, all you heard from big channels were, well, that's it. Nikon's going out of business. That's it. They're done. And then the 6 and 7, oh, these are awful. And then what happened is that they came out and they flew off the shelves, and they kept on flying off the shelves to a point where they got Gen 2, they got a crop sensor, they got a vlogging camera, they got full lens lineup, they have the Z9, they got firmware updates, they have full-on systems. And if it was such a failure, you wouldn't see a fleshed out system. And that's why you have to, whatever gear you're looking at, you have to try it for yourself. You have to kind of evaluate what is in your hand for yourself. Reviewers are doing what they do. And maybe there's some tidbits here and there, but in the end, get the gear in your hands and make it the decision. There's been cameras that people have praised, and then once I got it in my hand, I'm like, wow, this thing, I could flex it and break it right now. What good is this camera if it's not going to hold up? Like, just the build qualities. So like, look at the brands as a philosophy, what they are doing, what their lineup looks like, what they are doing, right? If you're going, man, I really like Fujifilm, but I really like full frame. It's like, well, Fujifilm clearly isn't doing a full frame lineup, but you could absolutely be into what they're doing if you just tried it, if you're already interested in that brand. So a lot of things that happened with the Z9 autofocus review, for example, most of the reviewers didn't even bother to go into the menu settings of the autofocus and change something like steady subject, erratic subject, or the sensitivity from 1 to 5. Canon has full cases, like a bunch of case scenarios. And I mean, like, you're shooting someone running, like it's literally like a case scenario that you set it to and it'll perform for that. The camera does not know what you're trying to shoot. It just knows what is in front of its lens as light coming into it, geography, distance. It's not a creative. So you have to understand that you can't really know a camera or a system till you actually use it yourself. That's what I'm going to say. And if there's something that the camera's not doing that you're trying to do, take a step back and go, hold on, is there a menu setting, or is it actually something that's not in this camera? For example, if you want to do 4K slow-mo video, does the camera do 4K 120 frames? If not, then yeah, that's missing out of that camera. But if you tell me, man, this camera just, I don't know, this EVF is junk. Hey, check the EVF setting. Maybe there's a performance boost option in there that gives you faster frame rates. Hey, how does it look now? Oh, it's better? Yeah, so take a breath. And this is coming from a guy that has to shoot every brand as a prototype pre-launch with like 5 seconds to learn the camera and then go do a pro shoot to show you guys how rad it is. And you've seen me do this for like 7 years on Adorama alone. I'm telling you, get the gear in your hands before you think reviews are gospel. And this includes my own reviews, because I'm only speaking from my experience and where I stand and what I like. But I try to look at gear from what anybody would use it as. And if it was geared towards something like the R3, someone goes, it's low res, screw this. Like, if it's a press camera, that's amazing. I'm telling you, that camera is awesome. I really enjoy using the R3. Not buying it right now. It's $6,000 and I'm not in the RF system, but it's a great release. Seth, both Lumix and Nikon are perfect examples of YouTube reviewer talking about. So the Lumix hate I kind of get, because it absolutely is a different type of user. Lumix is so video centric with shutter angle and everything you'd want as a filmmaker in this palm of your hand thing, and I get why the video people love it. And then I also see why people go, I don't know, man, this autofocus just isn't hitting for me. Having said that, it's a good jump into this, bada bing. I think, personally, Lumix is going to revamp their autofocus. Personally, that's what I think. I think that all the people that have completely taken it off the table are going to give it a bit of a shot, and it's going to start eating at some other things, meaning other market share. I know plenty of people that shoot other camera systems along with the Lumix, and the Lumix is their video camera. Now, if they get phase detect autofocus after completely dialing in contrast-based autofocus, which all autofocus systems are a hybrid, phase detect and contrast together, they might have one of the best autofocuses coming out. I believe they're going to do this. I believe that they're going to drop something heavy in the first half of the year. I believe that they're tired of not being up in the top echelon. They are a massive company. Panasonic is massive, massive, massive. I am talking like Sony, Panasonic are like humongous giants worldwide. I think they are going to drop something new. What camera? I don't know. I think the S5 is super popular for them, and it is low cost enough for them to do a refresh on it. And at a $2,000 price point, give or take, I totally think that they could enter the competition now if they squash the autofocus discussion, which they could, and I think they will. That's my prediction on that. That going forward, if they do fix the autofocus, I would love to see an update to the S1R, their higher res full frame. I would also like to see an S1H revisit. The S1H was a killer camera, basically an R5C years before the R5C. Lumix autofocus is the one thing keeping them being talked about in top tier, but it's a big thing. Case in point, right? I have this on autofocus, and it's focusing on my hand, it's focusing on my face. When you try this with Lumix, it takes a little bit. It's not there, and it's also got that pulsing look. This is a major quality of life thing for the person using the gear. I get it, so we're going to see what happens. I really, really, really hope I'm right. And I really, really hope the Lumix people get a chance to have their day, because you guys have been eating it for too long. If you notice, the major channels don't touch Lumix. They're like Canon, Sony, maybe Nikon, but it's always Canon, Sony. You don't see Fuji going to major channels anymore. Fuji is like, we're not giving gear out to channels that will just find reasons to bash us to get clicks. So it's going to be interesting to see another player in the game. I hope Lumix pulls it through. You're probably going to see some more lenses. And keep in mind, the cool thing about Lumix, aside from the video stuff, is its L mount. You have Sigma lenses that won't handicap the camera like on E mount. They're working in coalition with Sigma. So you have Leica lenses, you have Leica lenses, you have Sigma lenses, and you have Lumix's own lenses to mess with. A lot of glass to mess with. So, I mean, they are so primed, and they have so much, how do I put this? So many resources to really push it over the goal line here. I'm excited for it. I'll say that. So that's my Lumix rant. I think that they're going to be coming out of the gate hard in 2023. I hope I'm right. And if you're watching this on playback, I hope I'm right, and I hope you're a Lumix fan. And then that, and if you're on Sigma E mount, you can send the stuff to Sigma and get a remount swap over. This I didn't know, but that makes total sense to me. So why not? Oh, also, there's things that this reminds me. I'm sorry for another micro rant. So there's another thing that you guys don't realize is there's a difference between what's being talked about and what's actually happening in a market. So remember the Nikon knocked the 095 manual focus lens? People make jokes about it because it's expensive for what? It's not expensive for a cinema lens. And you know who's buying them like crazy and they're always selling out? Cinema shooters that are getting them remounted to PL mount and other things like that. So $8,000 compared to $15,000 cine lenses, they're selling like crazy. So Nikon's just kind of like, say what you want, we're just going to get bashed, but we're still making money. So there's a difference between the idea of what sells and people's opinions rather than the actual market. Case in point, you ready for this? Oh no, I didn't put it up. Okay, there it is. OM System, Olympus. Everyone thinks they're out of the game. OM System has dialed back a ton because they got sold, and they're in this weird identity crisis of, are we OM System? Are we Olympus? I got news for you. The OM1 selling really well. Olympus, though, I'm sorry, OM System, see, even I do it, has basically said they are scaling back their line to just 3 cameras. For real. So if they're going to have a very simplified line and they have a dedicated user base that likes their smaller micro four thirds form factor and all this stuff, and they have very cool technology in the cameras, they might be doing it right. The OM5 wasn't a great release, but the OM1 has been doing really well for them. It's hitting a pocket of the audience that wants it. So don't count them out either, you know? Just wanted to say that. Is the Pen F dead? I don't know. That's a good question. I don't think it is. I think it's still pretty... I think it's pretty popular for the people that want that camera. It's a cool little camera. Olympus does some cool things, man. And that's the other thing is, like, people look at the cameras and go off of the specs, but the specs don't make the camera. As crazy as that sounds, when you have the camera in your hand and you realize how everything plays off each other and the specs complement each other, then you realize what the design of the camera was. You know, you look at what you're trying to get. I want this much resolution, this much speed. I have this type of budget. I'm looking for to use this type of memory. Well, I already own these types of batteries. Does it take these batteries? Otherwise, I'm investing in other type of batteries. I have these lenses. Will it work with these lenses? It's all that, you know? So we got a lot going on. And keep in mind, this is an industry that took a huge beating during the pandemic, the factories shutting down, the shipment issues. I mean, shortages like you wouldn't believe. And people still gave them a ton of hell over it. You know, any predictions on Pentax? I don't think they're going to continue the 645 line. I don't. The 645 line is a tremendous amount of support that I don't think they're looking to do. I think that they're really looking at niche DSLR. Pentax, I think there's a rumor out, someone in the Discord, I think it was Ronald in the Discord, put in that they're going to be doing a monochrome DSLR. I could totally see that. I don't think you're going to see a 645 Pentax when that is aimed at a pro market that is absolutely looking for 100% support on whatever they're buying into, especially when you have GFX just gobbling up medium format right now. And now Hasselblad's waking up. The X2D is out, right? And they're putting out lenses. Hasselblad's coming out too. So it's tough, man. I want a camera that's as fast as Z9 with a phase 1 sensor for $200. Well, Scruff Kingman, you can go to Northrop's channel or whoever else thinks that's even possible. I keep it real here. You know, this is Brooklyn. We keep it real. All right. I think it's a little crazy for anyone to complain about what we got going on right now. I think that it's a little spoiled, the things that people bash each other over. I think, Seth, make a more comfortable chair for your 20. I know, right? This chair is killing me. You know, this chair is completely falling apart too. I have the foam's completely off of the armrest, but I just don't feel like getting another chair, and I don't know. Guys, I have so much I have to fund right now, including this channel, believe me. You want a GFX 52S. My problem with the GFX 52 is it's basically an older sensor, and like it was designed to be like a very low cost for what it is, medium format, but it's still $4,000, and that's tough, you know? That's the way I look at it. I don't know. Just steal a new chair from everyone. Send likes for new chair. Thanks, Ed. I appreciate that. And yeah, if you guys can hit like, I'd really appreciate it. I am 50 subscribers, 50 subscribers away from a 11,000 subscriber channel. And I can't thank you guys enough. I just want to make sure I'm right on that. Oh, I'm sorry. I just gained 4 subscribers. So welcome. Thanks for joining me. Man, yeah, my back problems are not getting any better. You guys know I broke my back, physically broke a disc in my back doing that Halloween workshop for Adorama. Like, that's what did it. So I'm all in on this. I'm doing everything I can to build and maintain a community for us and Adorama. I'm doing everything I can to gain as much insight from the brands as I can, maintain my freelance career where I actually still shoot, guys. Believe it or not, I'm still doing jobs. I don't put a lot of stuff on Instagram because a lot of it's either NDA or boring as hell. I think it's just not worth posting. And, you know, I got nothing but love for the game as much as I got hate for the game. But I would love to at least get this channel to a place where it's relevant. The videos don't just go to nowhere, that we as a community are part of the discussion, not just this like clickbait world that's out there. I am not a brand ambassador. I do not have to say, and I don't have to stick to one brand. And I think that's a huge advantage of this channel. I'm not, you know, an ambassador for a camera brand that gets a stipend, actually gets paid, is on a roster, on a staff, and then going, here's the best camera for under $1,000. How do you know? You don't even shoot any other brand or have touched any other brand. You're literally like kind of being dishonest to the audience out there, you know? So that stuff kind of bothers me. So I'm hoping that's the benefit of this channel. Also, I would like to think, being a lighting guy, I'm not just a camera reviewer here, right? I'm not just a guy that puts a lens on a body and goes and shoots. Like, I use it in more than just ambient light situations, you know, so I'm seeing a lot of things. I use it in versatile ways. I mean, you guys have seen me shoot at the zoo with long lenses, in the freezing cold with an 800 millimeter, shooting special effects makeup, shooting live for you guys, lighting, ambient light, on the street with the Manfrotto Halo. You've seen me in probably every situation, shooting every subject type. And I'm just hoping that this goes somewhere. That's my goal here, is just get it to go somewhere. Otherwise, it's just like, what am I burning myself away for, you know? Seth gets a new chair. You know, so you know what's crazy is this chair. I wanted a chair that didn't have like the head rest. I didn't want to have anything behind me. So I got this one that's called like a mid back. So every now and then I put my back against it, and maybe 30% of the time it gives way. And I'm like, one day someone's gonna have to check my apartment because I'm gonna be like on the floor with like a injury that no one's gonna know I'm here, you know? Thanks, Chris. I appreciate that. And I hope the lighting helps you guys, because shooting without lights is only half the game. When you're able to learn lighting, when you know how to light, you don't have to wait for a time of day. You can go shoot when you want to shoot. The Fujifilm X-T5 video I just did, I created a sunset because I wanted a sunset. I wasn't going to wait for that golden hour. No, I had to get this video done for you guys. I had to get it out there. Come on. I was actually pretty proud of that video. Got to shoot a chunky, fat, one-eyed cat, you know? That's what I like about the gaming chairs, is headrest. Yeah, I don't like the headrest. I don't know. I've never really liked headrests on chairs. Seth, you stay true and do not let others bother you. I think you're awesome, straightforward, and I tell like this. We need more of that. Thank you, Randy. I appreciate that. I wish I could devote all my energy to this channel and just see where it goes. The problem I'm running into is I can't find enough time to like record, and then sometimes I'll record something and I don't get to it till like a month later to edit it, and it's already like outdated to me. So I'm having a lot of trouble trying to figure out a flow for my channel, and I'm also having a lot of trouble keeping an ambition up for this channel. I know that sounds horrible, but like Matt, if Matt's still in the chat, he knows exactly how hard it is to do a quality channel, like real production value, correct information, something worth watching, you know, really keeping the pace and making something that is credible to not insult the viewer. I don't just sit down and just, you know, pull something out of nowhere. Like, I really want to message something and help you guys, you know, and I would like to think that the 25 years I've been shooting in this industry, from film till now, can kind of elevate, because the main reason I do this is because early in my career, the veteran photographers that I looked up to let me on their sets, and they taught me what I needed to know, and they sat me down and gave me the respect of carrying forward what the game is. And now we don't do we don't do assisting on so much anymore, as people just buy a camera, go on YouTube. So this is my way of doing what those guys did for me, is sitting you guys down after a long day on set and going, here's how we use cinefoil. Here's how you properly use a C-stand. Here's what to look for in the equipment. Here's what you really should prioritize when you're creating images. And here's what we should look at. And this is all stuff that, you know, isn't a rule of law, but it gives you an insight from an experience level. And not for nothing, it is extremely hard to be a pro photographer, freelance creative in New York City. And I've been doing it my whole life. So I hope I lend something to you guys. I hope something clicked somewhere and you guys are able to do something you weren't able to before, see something you weren't able to see before, make decisions you weren't able to make before. You know, it's what it is, you know. A7R3 version 2 or A7 IV, is the A7 IV autofocus that much better than the A7R3 or slightly better? Hey Mo, let me ask you the question. What is it about the autofocus on an A7R3 that is just impossible to work with, that you think you need to upgrade an entire camera to get that autofocus? Do you think you really are missing out on some sort of autofocus performance that you need to go and buy a new camera? Think about this. Think about it. Does everyone get what I'm saying right now? Like, look at what you're asking, and the key thing is your autofocus. Is it completely failing on you? Have you missed shots? Learn lighting by assisting many different kind of photographers for years is what burned photography into the heart for 25 years now. Absolutely. What's Pro Photo doing in 2023? That's really funny that you asked that. I wasn't going to bring up Pro Photo because I wasn't sure you guys cared about lighting. You're going from a DSLR? Okay. I'm just going to answer this Pro Photo thing really quick and we'll talk about it, Mo. Pro Photo, I think, has put a lot out there really fast. I think they're going to focus on magnetic click modifier line, and I think we're going to see a bunch of firmware updates coming from Pro Photo to do some feature things. As far as strobes go, I think they filled out that line pretty good. A10, A2, B10X, B10X Plus. I would love to see something happen with the D2s, but they're just awesome as it is, and all I want is a 1,000 watt second D2. Oh my God, all I want is a 1,000 watt second D2. That's all I want. That's all I want. Just give it to me. But it's like $2,700 that I don't need to spend. So I'm telling myself, you don't need to spend it. You just want the power. And keep in mind, I'm a guy that people relate to speed lights, 70 watt seconds, and I want a 1,000 watt second light. Like, so dumb. Okay, so Mo is going from a DSLR. The first thing you got to ask yourself is, which camera company is kind of speaking to you if you're going into mirrorless? What DSLR brand are you in? Do you have lenses that you can adapt so you don't have to go and buy a bunch of lenses with a camera? Can you get yourself started slow? You know, so is there something that you're looking for from Sony? Is there a budget, you know? A click pizza box from Pro Photo. Hey, I might be getting a signature, a D10. Yeah, right. I might be getting a signature pizza box reflector. I'm just saying, it might happen, guys. There's a lot of talk about it. Looking at you in this video, Seth, because of you, I'm attempting to try to figure out your lights placement. It's a 2-light setup. Oh, so what's up with this lighting setup? It's kind of dialed in, actually. So I have to deal with reflections on my glasses. So I take that into account right away. I also wanted to make sure that wherever I move my head, it stays somewhat symmetrical so that it's not a constant moving shadow. So what you're looking at is an overhead 3-foot octa with half a grid so that the first half is open so that I get just a straight softbox, and the other half of the grid so it won't touch the wall, so the wall gets lit separately with another light with a gel that I can change at any time. There's also a light bouncing off the ceiling to give me a little bit of fill. And there's also a tungsten balanced LED panel to give me this light, if you can see that light. So you're looking at 1, 2, 3, 4 lights in this setup plus the LEDs. And then I dial in my exposure to the screen light hitting me as a fill. So if I open up something over here, right, and it has like a white background, you'll see I have a nice fill light. If I take this away, you can see the fill light goes away. You guys see that? Fill light, no fill light. Fill light, no fill light. Wayne, you would be surprised how many people think I do single light setups and there's like 9 lights in there. So when it comes to lighting, it's endless. I mean, look at Ab Cisse. That dude is doing a series basically to show you guys just how far lighting can go sometimes. Your opinion about the A7C Mark II will have dual slot, or they change the super size Type A only? Okay, what I'll say about any Sony going forward is if they have CF Express Type A in mind for the camera, they're gonna make it an SD slot as well. They have not done just a CF Express Type A alone slot. Why would they? So they have the chassis, the boards, and all that stuff for that. Here we go. Hot girls in my area. Let me get rid of that. Hot girls in my area. Man, finally, these bots found me. Whew. 300 LEDs, so it's a 304 light setup. Yeah, right. So yeah, that's, if Sony is going to put out a body that has CF Express Type A, it's also going to have SD, I believe. I just don't think they're going to do CFA in the A7C. If they even do a Mark II, I don't think they're going to, honestly. If they do, I'll be surprised. It's a camera that just is like resources they don't need to give up, you know? Does that make sense? If you guys haven't already, please consider hitting subscribe and then hit the bell so you get notified when I put out more videos. Also, guys, don't forget, all over the channel, I have past live streams where I'm shooting live. I just put up one where I shot black and white live, shot with Joe McNally live. There's a bunch of videos on C-stands and shooting in the street with reflectors and all sorts of stuff. So please, if you're new to the channel, click around and check out some more videos. I'm thinking about switching from a 5D Mark III to a Sony so I can use my L glass on the Sony. The A7R III is okay. So here's your first problem: the 5D Mark III, when you adapt L glass to it, is not going to give you the same performance as your L glass adapted to a Canon mirrorless. So right there, if you don't realize that you're taking a hit on autofocus, if you're worried about autofocus, you do not want to do a Canon lens adapted to a Sony. It's not going to act the way you think it's going to act. However, your L glass adapted to an RF mount will absolutely work the way that L glass is supposed to work. So I really think that if that's a concern for you, you're going to have a rude awakening when you try to adapt an L glass to a Sony camera, without a doubt. I don't care what reviewer somewhere, some guy in some forum told you, it is not the same as a native lens. At least the Canon adapter acts as if it is native glass. And I think anyone in this chat that has a Canon can attest to this. Well, Scruff Kingman, I'm going to tell you that you should check out Adorama for your next shopping camera needs and use my affiliate link. Adorama.com/lastxwitness. But yeah, so if for real, yeah, I think it's a misconception that you can just like adapt glass and it's like, yay, it works. Like, Seth, you think Sigma will drop another camera? I think we're still waiting for Sigma to do something with that Foveon sensor. I have no idea. Sigma is weird, homie. Weird. Any insight into the Sony 200 to 600 adapted to Nikon Z series? I see a lot of people recommending that combo. I have honestly never seen someone do it. So I don't know. But I would say the 2-600 Z mount that is on the roadmap has got to hit soon because I am sick of hearing about it. But at Mosman, I haven't heard anyone doing that. Actually, Matt probably knows better than I do. If you know Matt, if Matt's still in the chat, or you go check out Matt's channel, he might even know about it. Hey Matt, I don't know if you know about that. The Sony 2-6 on the Nikon Z adaptation. Listen. I would love Adorama to have a presence in Europe. We go to Europe usually to do videos. We did a lot of stuff for IBC in Amsterdam. I did a video in London, Paris, and stuff like that. But as far as like Adorama being there, not just the content team, yeah, I hear you. I hear you. This is interesting. Ed Francis, this is a very interesting way to put it. Normal adapter equals English to French. Canon adapter equals English to American. That's an interesting way to put it. Well, the problem with the Sigma cameras is like the sensor's cool. It's the rest of the camera that you're like, what? L-Glass adapted to an RF mount works flawlessly. I adapt my EF stuff to my R5. So, and I can attest to this as well because I've adapted both Canon and Nikon glass. Actually, I still keep one of my lenses adapted from my old setup. My Zoom fisheye. I love this lens. This is a Zoom 8 to 15 millimeter fisheye lens that is for the F mount, but I keep the adapter on at all. I might as well glue it on there. I love this lens, dude. This is one of the funnest lenses ever. If you are in the Nikon system and you have not tried this lens, go look in a used department, go try to find one. It is the funnest lens. It is a circular 8 millimeter fisheye, and then when you zoom, it's full frame 15 millimeter. It's awesome. Love this lens. Love it. So Matt's saying, I've not tried it. Currently have the 7200 2.8 Sony, and I'm testing with the E to Z. How's that going? Seth get as FTZ2. Yeah, I wish I had the version 2 of the adapter, but it's money I don't got to spend. And let me tell you something, man. Like, I'm not made of money. I mean, I had to work my brains out to pay off the Z9. I had to do so many jobs, shoots I didn't want to do. Didn't want to do it. Purely for making back the money on the Z9. And I wish I had 2 Z9s because I feel weird not having dual bodies. As a freelancer, I know Matt knows what this is like. If you just don't have backups on things, your brain gets all jacked up. I don't mind Sigma being a little quirky. At least someone is thinking out of the box. Yeah, but at some point, it's just like a talking piece. So Sigma just kind of has to really be serious about the camera they put out, because once you get someone to actually buy it, it's kind of like, are you going to support this thing? Is there going to be updates for it? Is there a whole line for it? Can I worry about third-party support for things like strobes or any type of connections? That's what you need out of cameras. It isn't just a cool idea. It needs to be 100% supported as soon as it hits a consumer's hand who bet on your brand by giving you money. And now I got someone pounding on the buzzer again at 9 o'clock at night. What's your go-to body for stills? Right now it's Z9. And the GFX 100S is like my special projects camera. I only pull that out for certain things. But if I'm going to go shoot and I just don't even think about it, the Z9, I'm so lived in on this camera with the custom buttons and everything's dialed exactly how I want it, settings and everything. I mean, I am squeezing these 3, I don't know if you guys, can you see the 3 custom buttons in here? When I'm shooting, I'm literally squeezing these, it's like playing an accordion. I'm constantly squeezing one of these buttons for some function that I put in there. It's nuts. It's like out of my mind. Dual Z9s, not a Z9, and a mythical Z8. So I'm waiting to see what the Z8 is. If it's a scaled down version of this and I don't need this as my second camera, maybe, right? But I don't know what the Z8 is. I just know I just believe it's going to come in like the first quarter of next year. That's what I believe. So yeah, I'm not doing it. People don't realize that there's also something in Brooklyn where people bang on your buzzer and then they pretend they can't hear you, and then you go down there and they just rush the door when you go to it's a real thing. So unless I'm expecting someone, I am not going near the door at night. And I'm never expecting someone. So there's that. Hey Wayne, thank you so much for the super chat. I appreciate it. Listening to Photo Gear Talk was invaluable, and I just wanted to contribute back a cushion and a better chair for you. Thanks so much, man. I appreciate it. I really appreciate that. Do you do one-on-light training for lighting? I used to. I know Dan Norton, who is an amazing master of light and an incredibly knowledgeable and heavily experienced professional here in New York, does do one-on-one training, so you might want to check out him. I have a hard time kind of committing to doing that kind of stuff, and if I do, I'm going to charge for that time. Do you know what I'm saying? So I don't have a major presence out there, so I don't think people would want to pay me for the time what I would want for the time it would take to do a one-on-one lighting thing with them. So you know, I know guys like Fro get like a few $100 an hour just to do a Zoom call. I'm not at that level of notoriety to people, so that's that, you know. All we know about the Z8 is that it will take pictures. Hey, Mike James, what's going on, buddy? How's Alaska doing, man? So that was kind of my gear predictions. I didn't expect to be going for 2 hours. I thought, you know, that's crazy. I don't ever want to see that type of crap. I'm from the Midwest. Yeah, New York is not the Midwest, but there's a lot of Midwesterners here that go, what? And it's like, yeah, it's a tough city. New York is a tough city. It will beat down on you mentally. Some people crack from it. There's a lot of people who have and people who don't have, and it clashes like crazy all the time. Everyone's hustling. Everyone's tired. Everyone's got more than one job they got to get to or do something. It never stops here. But you know what? I wouldn't trade this city for anything in the world. I will, as hard as it is, I will always love this city. It's in my DNA. I could have been born anywhere in the world, and I was born here in New York, and I'm grateful for that every day. And you have to hate this city as much as you love it, 100%. But it is a city that things happen here that don't happen anywhere else. You will have a day that completely changes your life just from walking around the block. It's an incredible experience to be from here, and I don't take that lightly. And I think that's why when I say like, yo, I'm from Brooklyn, it's like, yeah, I'm proud that I'm able to do this, you know? Yeah, I'll leave this video up. I didn't get jammed with a bunch of weirdness this time. So I think we're in for a pretty hectic year, 2023. I think Nikon's going to be throwing hard. I think Lumix is going to be throwing hard. I'm really curious to see what Canon does with what they got going on. Fuji, we're looking at some GFX. I think Sony's going to go hard with their A6000 series, which will sell mad. I think they're going to do great on the A6000 series if they refresh it. I hope they figure out the CF Express Type A debacle. Who knows? Just 200 more streams and you can get a new chair. Thanks, Hassan. Oh, man. And I just want to say, guys, like, it's really easy to hate out there, and it's not easy to keep a community together. So anybody who's out there making content to just attack other people without, one, having any credibility, that isn't shooting, that isn't showing you guys work, you should be listening to creators of insights like this that you have seen shoot, that you have seen work from, that you know has credibility out there. If they're not doing any of that, how can you take any of it to heart? So really, really filter what you're ingesting out there, okay? There's a lot of people out there that are just talking a bunch of junk that are being toxic and poisonous to an industry and a community that's already hurting a lot. And I think that we can be better of an audience all around. I heard Adorama gives you equipment for free. So if you guys really want to know, it's not that we get equipment for free. It's that we are expected to use certain gear from the brands that are up to date. So we're constantly like trying to refresh. A lot of things are on loan. Like for example, I had the Sony A1 here for a year. It eventually went to another person on my team because I don't need it. And I think that we are very lucky where we are, but we also get like gear drunk. It's kind of like, well, which thing should we take with what? What system would work for what we're doing? Rah, 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 rah. And then in the end, we all just buy our own gear and use that anyway. Like I bought my Z9 and I'm using that for all the videos anyway, you know? So it's not that they give us stuff for free, and we all absolutely on the content team absolutely buy our own gear still, 100%. And we buy the gear that connects for us, you know. So there's that. Thanks for all the lighting videos. You help raise my lighting game point. That's great, Mike. I'm glad. I hope it's helping you. Maybe you're making a few extra bucks, you know, doing some portraits for people. Any photographer that can't show work is not worth listening to. I've seen a lot of camera reviewers who take mediocre images, no message, no emotions, and intentionally choose a beautiful person and make you believe this is the way you become a professional. That I haven't seen. The no emotions, no message. That I haven't seen. But I have absolutely seen brand ambassadors that try to pretend like they're not really representing a brand, but they're like talking about your choices as a consumer. And I'm like, wait a second, like you're not even talking about the majority of the rest of the industry. What are you doing? But I also have seen plenty of people that just try to go after other channels without having anything to show. I mean, zero, nothing. I haven't seen anything from some of these people. And somehow I'm supposed to believe any of their opinions on gear that I'm not even sure they've even touched or seen in person? How is that a thing? How is that a thing? How? If chair breaks, there's always an apple box. Funny you should say that. I got my APS-C Nikon recently, and I don't even want to open that wound up, but people who never even touch the gear talk about the gear, and it's like, what? Does gear matter? Okay, so does gear matter? At some point, yes. Okay? If you're looking for an image fidelity of something, and if you're going to go and shoot a high-end campaign and you show up and you have a Canon Rebel that's a beginner camera that has limited dynamic range, isn't producing fast enough images, isn't giving the client what they want, then yeah, at some point the gear matters, doesn't it? Or if you're trying to get a sequence of an action shot that is someone throwing a baseball and you want the entire range of it and your camera doesn't do a certain frames per second, then yeah, the gear matters. When the gear doesn't do something you need it to do, then the gear matters, doesn't it? So for me, I shoot a lot of commercial, I shoot a commercial makeup. Detail and color accuracy is super paramount. I cannot show up to these shoots and expect me to be hired back if I'm delivering them something that's subpar. Part of what you're being hired for is the quality of what is being delivered, as well as your demeanor, your talent, your style, blah, 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 blah. But gear matters at a point when it's unable to do something that you're trying to get across the table. There could even be something as far as build quality. So let's say you get hired for a news job and you go into an environment that's harsh and you don't have weather sealed gear because it's lower quality gear. And then your gear fails and then you can't do the job. So does gear matter there? I'd say so. Let's say I'm shooting and my lights start changing color temperature and my color accuracy is all over the place and my client has to stay there even longer till I alleviate the solution and then their time is burned away. Or let's say I'm renting a studio and I'm having gear problems that's eating up my time and now I'm over my rental time and it's costing me a lot of money per hour extra. The gear matters. So you guys have to realize that you can always make whatever happen with whatever's in your hand if you have enough knowledge and experience. Absolutely. But you have to also kind of make decisions on gear based on what you're willing to trade off for. You absolutely get what you pay for in this industry. There's better values than other things. There's things that are absolutely overpriced in some regards, but for the most part, you get what you pay for in this industry. So when the gear matters when you're not delivering what you're trying to achieve. It's that simple. So you got to look at what's going on there, you know? I've had cameras that I thought were amazing that didn't tether. So the client was like, well, why can't I see it on the screen? And then that's a problem. So there's things, you know? Wait, what is going on here? I'm shooting a Keen Sierra tomorrow on an iPhone Pro Max. Boy, will they be disappointed as I found out they overpaid. You know, there's the right tool for the job. And if you were shooting on a phone because it has to go onto a social network right away or something, you know, then that was the tool for that job, you know? There's so many, actually there isn't so many, there's infinite use cases out there. There's infinite scenarios and there's infinite possibilities of photographer and client, photographer subject, photographer scenario, situation, environment, you know, budget, all that stuff. So it's more about how much do you want to compensate for to get over the goal line? Because at some point, like for example, if you find yourself constantly doing something or renting something or trying to finagle something that doesn't happen organically with the gear, at some point you go, you know what, maybe I should buy this blank that just does it, you know? Would you like cameras to have Android software in it, like, and different applications? No. I like my camera to just be a camera. And if you're going to do anything, I would just like the camera to just chuck images over to my phone seamlessly. No hassle. Just get it done. Every brand has like a hang up on getting it from camera into phone. There's always like some stopgap, something. It's like, I don't even want it. Every brand. So no, not really. Man, I'm losing my voice. All right. Anything else, guys? Did I leave anything else on the table? That being said, no camera is worth a dime unless it makes you want to pick it up again. If you shoot a camera and it just stays there collecting dust, I don't care how much you paid for it. I don't care what reviews it got. I don't care what you think of it. If you didn't enjoy it and make you want to go shoot again, or if picking up that camera makes you think about how difficult something about that camera is, if the menus don't make sense to you, if the color doesn't feel right, if the build quality doesn't make you feel confident about it holding up, if it's too heavy, if it's too big, if it's too small, like there's cameras that are too small for my hands that drive me crazy and hurt my hands at the end of the day. You know, if there's cameras out there that speak to you, that's the camera. It's not about the reviews. It's about what's right for you. And that's why there's so many options, and they're all awesome. And 2023, it looks like we're going to have even more awesome. So I'm amped. I know I'm going to be doing a ton of videos for Adorama next year. That's for sure. Thanks for hanging out, Mike. Okay, last questions, guys. Last questions. No whammy, no whammy. If you haven't already, please hit like. Don't forget to hit subscribe and the bell to get notified when I put out more videos, because I really got to get this channel. If you can, guys, and I don't mean to kind of like be one of these guys, but sharing the videos around is the most helpful thing you can do for the channel. It's free. If there's a topic I've done a video on that you think someone might like it, please do me a favor and share them the video. The C-stand video is a really good one to share around. People don't know C-stands apparently. Just so you know, 2023, I will be speaking at Imaging USA. I will be tentatively at WPPI. That's looking a little iffy, but I am on the, they did accept my speaker thing. And as of right now, but I'm not 100% sure I'm going through with it, I'll be at Shutterfest next year. So those 3 shows I will definitely be at. And me and Joe McNally might be working on something in London, to be determined. I don't know yet. Wayne Morrison, is there a level to start out when buying lights? Does inexpensive get great results? When you are buying lights and you're going for a bit of a more of a budget brand, you're usually sacrificing sometimes build quality, but usually consistency. And the consistency means that if a light tends to overheat a little bit, the temperature of the light changes. And if you're not sensitive to that, you might not even care. Or it misfires, or it works on a frequency that gets bogged up and doesn't fire because there's too many other frequencies in there. Because like Pro Photo, part of what you're paying for is the frequency that's less used out there, so there's not interruptions. I can count on my hand the amount of times Pro Photo misfired on me, and almost all of them, if not all of them, were my user error. So there's that. I would say you really got to set yourself a budget. Look at the options in that budget and also think, what is important to you? Is it the size of the light so you can carry it somewhere? Is it the amount of power you get out of the light? Is it how many lights you want in total, right? So do you go with one light that's expensive and powerful, or do you go with smaller lights that are less powerful, but you get more of them so you can light different things in different zones? So you have to kind of work out what you're looking for in your lighting setup, or what you're trying to do rather with the lights, Yeah, fingers crossed, Damien. I would love to make it to London again. It's been I haven't been to London in 3 years. And even then, I never get to see the city because I'm working in some studio somewhere. There's a lot of great lights out there. Just best tip for a starting photographer: if you are just starting out, my best tip to you, and I mean you're just starting out, meaning you haven't even figured out how to do proper exposures. Stop listening to all these super egos out there. Put the camera in modes that gets you a shot and get excited about what you're shooting. Then look at those shots and go, it would have been cool if I did this. Then figure out what does that. For example, shoot a picture of the street and you go, man, it would have been really cool if I could see some motion blur to show that these people are moving really fast. Well, then you've got to learn what settings would get my camera to do that. And you'll find out a slower shutter speed will do that, but you're going to have to keep the camera stable. So just don't lose this part of your shooting experience and journey of where you just get to be excited about shooting. And this is coming from a guy that when I shoot, there is 10 tons of pressure on my shoulders for everyone that's on my set, everyone filming me while I'm shooting, the channels I work for, the crowds that I'm teaching, right? I got like 600 eyeballs staring at me. Go enjoy the shot. Worry about the tech later. Just get yourself to a place that you're excited about what you're doing. And then make a realization to look at the stuff you're shooting and what you're wanting it to be. And that's when you start looking at techniques. Does that make sense? Cool, Frank. Hey, what's up, Michael? How are you, buddy? Trick Poker, man, one of the OGs, man. Absolutely, Danny. Don't let anyone ruin this time in your photo career right now. This is a time you are never going to get back. Go enjoy it. I'm telling you right now. I still think back to my early days and how crazy I was and the things I was trying, and now I'm like, I don't have the energy for that. I'm not going to bother. I've already been there. I've done that. I'm not going to, nah, who cares? But there were days that I remember in my early days, I was sleeping in studios just to be there the next day right on time. And, you know, I would do whatever I could to build props and get to locations before the cops chased me out. And I was just excited to chase the shot. It's a tough ambition to get back. And I really hope that you feel like super excited about what you're about to get into. Do not let any of these egotistical jerks tell you the proper way to do something or what gear is better or tell you what, you know, you should be having in your kit. Don't listen to them. Just go shoot. Do not let anyone stop you from doing that, including yourself. I'm sorry if that's like preachy, but like for real. I try to channel I call it my adolescent self all the time. And that's what all this stuff on my walls is. This is all old work that I try to like remember the mindset I was in when I did that. Cause it's something you just can't get back, man. What's missing for you from the Nikon Z9? What would you add besides price cut? One, I want the HE star compression to be used more. I want it to do raw 30 frames if it can do with the HE star. I want to do raw pre-capture, not JPEG. I would like to see shutter angle implemented in the video functionality. I mean, this camera is killing it though. I gotta tell you, this is the first camera in a long while that makes me so amped to pick it up. I don't know what it is. I don't know if I'm just used to Nikon's interface or whatever it is, but I'll tell you, I get this camera in my hand. You can't touch me sometimes. There's certain things about this camera that allow me to work faster than I ever have before. And I am finding myself getting done with typical jobs in maybe 2/3 the time I normally would. And one of them is that Manfrotto Halo video I did, the three video Manfrotto Halos that I did. I blasted through those in half a day, and I was just shredding through shots with that girl. If you've seen those videos, please check them out on my channel. Some people put parrots on the shoulder. You know why? Because it fits like perfect. Like, look at this. I could do a puppet show now with this camera, you know? And as a guy who shot everything, there's no one that's better than another. The R3, the A1, all that stuff. Like, it's not one that's better than the other. It's just some of them hit the right way, you know? Yeah, so Matt's kind of saying that makes you feel like you can do anything. There's no limits. That's how it really makes you feel. Like, to be honest with you, I don't think I haven't put this camera in my hand on 20 frames per second and gone, man, wish I shot that at 30 frames a second. I really needed it. Never, I haven't. It's just not there. I know I got the speed. I know I got the res. The only thing this camera doesn't do that I wish it could do is the thing the Leica does and pixel bins, meaning it is 46 megapixels. In low light situations, high ISO, you're going to see noise. The Leica lets you remap the pixels so that when you lower the resolution, it doesn't just make a smaller file size, it bins the pixels together to make them larger pixel sites, which actually lowers the noise. I would love if this would morph the sensor down in resolution as I please, because then it would be awesome. But the Z9 is phenomenal. It really is. And what's crazy is it was phenomenal day one. And then firmware 3 is in this thing now, and it's like crazy. Oh, by the way, Matt, if you're still in the chat, am I crazy, or has firmware 3 on the Z9 made a difference for you in IBIS? Because I feel like the stabilization, no, not the SL2, the M11. I feel like the stabilization feels better to me now on the Z9 ever since firmware 3.0, especially for video. I don't know if that's like a placebo, but I keep on going. Like, there were times when in version 1 that I felt like the stabilization was fighting me, and now I don't feel that anymore. So, but I keep thinking like I'm trying to find like a Z9 with like the original firmware so I can try to put it side by side, because I think I'm seeing things or feeling things. Like, I don't think it's real. I think it's a placebo. I could be wrong. I got to ask Ricci. Ricci would know. Yeah, the M11 pixel bins, and it's awesome. It really does make a difference. You really see the image noise go down. It's dope. It's dope. I really I hope that's the sensor technology going forward. Autofocus is definitely faster and stickier in firmware 3. Yeah, it is. It is. And I don't know about you guys. I don't know if Mike even shoots people, really. He shoots a lot of amazing landscapes in Alaska. You guys should check out Mike James's work. What was I going to say? Totally lost it. I'm tired, guys. I totally lost it. Hell, you sold the Z9 to me on backlit buttons and a full-size HDMI port. Those two things alone. Backlit buttons are awesome. Oh, yeah, that's what I was going to say. I don't know if you guys have found in the Z9 firmware 3.0, it's recognizing backs of people's heads more than before. Like, I'm noticing it's putting a box when someone's not facing me, like the back of their head, and then it grabs their eye as soon as they turn. So it's kind of crazy. What will you be using the Apple M2 for? Basically, my field work. I use a MacBook Pro to tether in anywhere I shoot. I try to tether in every single time I shoot. There's very rarely do I try shooting to cards sometimes. If I don't have to, I'm tethering, homie. Later, Matt. Thanks for hanging out, buddy. All right, we are over the 2-hour mark here. So I'm going to say, if you guys have any other questions, let me know. Internal memory 1 terabyte. Would you love in a Z9? I don't think I need a terabyte. Maybe a 500 gig, or even a 256 gig, just as like a failsafe, just as an overflow, or if I don't have cards on me or I fill them up, something that would be rad. But keep in mind that would make this a $6,000 camera instead of $5,500. So, you know, the fact that they pulled this camera off for $5,500, brand new, which means it's only going to get cheaper from here. Shut up. Like, shut up. Z9 wishes would like a multiple recall shooting function. Whoa. Oh, shoot. That was an empty mug. Later, Brandon. I'll tell you what I would like. I would like to map a function button so I can toggle on and off subject detection. Right now, I have it done in a recall function that I'm not wild about. I would like to just be able to toggle it on and off on the fly. How's that? And being able to update the firmware in my cameras just by a phone app is awesome. At Adorama, we use Nikon Z6 in the Streamlab. I update one camera. It's on the memory card. I take it, I put in the other cameras, and I'm updated. Done. Out. Over. And all my pro photo lights are done updating firmware through my phone. It's so rad. No cables. No, it's like seconds. It's sick. I have not tried the iPad Capture one. I think Ab has. Talk to Ab Cisse when he's live on Adorama XP on Tuesdays. Tuesdays, 7 p.m. Eastern time on Adorama XP Twitch. Ab Cisse does amazing streams with the GFX 100. He's tethered to Capture One, I think, through the iPad. I think. Man, all right. This was a lot. I didn't stop talking for 2 hours, man. Man, my neck keeps clicking in and out of place. Ugh. So let me run something by you guys. Can I run you guys? Can I run by you guys my ideas for video topics that I want to do, and then you tell me if I should bother or not? Oh, the 24 to 120 is sick, man. How soon do you think things like rolling shutter will no longer exist? I don't think we're gonna see global shutters too soon. Stacked sensors in full frame are like a $4,000 price point. Global shutters, you're looking at like $7,000 right now, plus overheat issues, plus, you know, who knows how slow the camera would have to be to, you know, frames per second, stuff like that. So what I wanted to do was a video on, I lost my list. Video topics. So I want to do a video on metering modes for TTL, meaning, you know, spot metering, matrix evaluative metering, center weight metering for TTL, and why it matters. I get asked that a lot, and I think it's super easy to show, but I have to do the video, so it's a whole thing. I wanted to do a video on beginner settings, but my style, like what I think beginner settings will help people get off their get off to the, you know, get off the ground with. I just want to say thank you. I always come for your videos and something helped me out my game. Love you do videos on the simple things and how you use them. Thanks a lot, Cindy. You know, it's funny you say that because everyone says I do videos too much on advanced topics and not enough beginner stuff. So TTL metering is a good one. Okay. I have no idea what this says. I must have wrote this while I was like half awake. I was gonna do a video on why I'm not an influencer and why I actually do this. So like kind of like it's a talking video. Oh, I was gonna do movie scenes of photo shoots like for like Zoolander and stuff, and then like analyze the setups and be like, they're not really using that. That's a cool thing. They don't make that anymore. Like photographer watches photo scenes in movies or something like that. I thought would be a fun one. That's gonna be a lot of work though. I have to like actually get all the movies like display captured and stuff. Well, I don't know what I meant by this. Oh, okay. I was gonna do a video how the power setting on your strobe doesn't matter. Even though it kind of does, but it would be like clickbaity, but I'd explain why the setting on the light isn't what you think it is. Well, welcome, CV. I'm glad you made it at all, buddy. I was going to do a video on... I was going to do a video on why I hate Rembrandt lighting. I'm sure that will get a lot of hate. And I was going to do a video on why brands aren't out to get you, because people almost act like as soon as something's released, it's like a scam to get your money, but you don't have to buy any of it. So I want to do a video on like why brands aren't actually like evil. Now I want to hear it. Controversy is good. Do a video on what Rembrandt lighting is. Nah, I'll never do a video on what Rembrandt lighting is. I'll tell you exactly why. I'm sick of it, though. And I'll give you guys a preview of it. Because when people say they love a lighting style, they're already in the wrong headspace. You should look at what you're shooting and light for the subject. If you're lighting for the lighting style, you're not photographing the subject. You're not portraying the person for the portrait. You're just happening to get a dramatic look of Rembrandt lighting. Ooh. It's almost like relying on presets instead of shooting the shot. You're not creating the shot. It's whack. I love when people are like, oh, I use broad light, I use short light, I use the clamshell light. Okay, no one can, shut up. Light your friggin' subject for what the subject is and how you want to portray it. Stop thinking about the lighting style before the subject. Well, I just ruined that video. Got a chance to borrow the Z9 for a day. The shuttless system gave the biggest impression for me. What do you mean, CB? I sound like Cookie Monster. Yo, I could totally go for a whole tray of like cookies right now. I could just like totally zone out, watch something and just slamming cookies all now. Can you delete my last comment? Never. Never. Oh yeah, you like clamshell lighting? Okay, do clamshell lighting when your subject has, I don't know, something that's brighter than their own skin tone. Then you're going to have actual inverse square illuminating and dying off as it gradates up. It's not doing this. I am not doing this. I am not ending this live stream frustrated. Not doing it. Not doing it. That being said, I thought this would just be a fun stream, and I guess we can see if any of my predictions were right. Oh, that's cute. You think I have spare time. You're adorable. You are adorable. I'm going to go boop right in your nose. Boop. Boop right on your cute nose. You're so cute. Boop. Like I have free time. Can we get a video where you use all your lights in one complicated shot? Oof. Nikon did an awesome job making the camera behave like it has a shutter, but it doesn't have one. Well, I mean, a lot of cameras use electronic shutters. They already do. They just happen to have a mechanical shutter as well. Nikon just felt they didn't need it. And you know what? I'm chilling on not having a shutter. I got to tell you, as a guy who has had shutters explode on me after years of having a camera for pro use, meaning you're shooting almost every day, blasting through frames, it's only a matter of time before that shutter explodes. Not having a shutter, like I'm actually thinking like, wow, there's no shutter count. What I do want to see cameras have though, and listen close, is I want to see hours the camera is on. Because with mirrorless now, it's about how long that sensor is running. So if they had, like this, like I keep saying, this is a Nikon Z6 original. The shutter count is only 3,000 frames. However, this camera has been my web camera for almost 4 years now. So it's been running constantly. It's been pumping data constantly. So there is definitely wear on the camera. I want to see mirrorless cameras have a running timer of how many hours have been used in the camera for the life of the sensor, the EVF, the LCD, the processor, the board, all of that. Does that make sense? You still don't understand first curtain shutter, why it is good or not when it is good. I'm not sure what your question is on that. Ireland. You know, I've never been to Ireland. I'd probably fit in with the red hair, right? Basically, it's always on, Vic. Like, that's what's happening. Like, people don't even think about that. So when you're buying a used camera, if I sold you this Z6 II that had 3,000 shutter count on it, and you had a camera that had 25,000 shots taken on it, but it was only activating for a fraction of the time this has been on, which one would you rather get? What's a better condition? You know what I'm saying? Like, You know, I think I'm fading, guys. I think I'm going to call it. Guys, thanks so much for hanging out with me. I hope this was fun for you guys. I wasn't sure how it was going to go. I'm surprised anyone even showed up. I set up this live stream last minute. It's a pretty trash Saturday night here, so I'm kind of like, yeah. First curtain, maybe front curtain and rear curtain. Like every camera has front and rear curtain. You guys get that, right? Do you guys want me to go over what front and rear curtain is before I get out of here? You tell me right now. Because it's not a camera-specific thing. Every camera has it. All right, really, really quick. Really quick. Front curtain, rear curtain. When you guys have a focal plane shutter, which basically means not a leaf shutter, but a focal plane shutter. Let me see if let me get a piece of. I just need like a piece of paper. Hang on. All right. So this is your sensor, okay? This is your sensor, and when you guys take a photo, the shutter comes down, which means it's open, and then the shutter closes behind itself. At some point, it doesn't just like open and close, it chases itself. So at some point, you get a slit that runs down the sensor. This is where flash sync comes into play, because at some point it's too fast to be in sync with the shutter. The shutter's too fast to be in sync with the flash, and it doesn't cover the whole sensor. When you have front curtain, the shutter opens first and then closes. And then when you do rear curtain, what you're doing is opening the shutter, and then at the end of the exposure, the flash hits and it closes behind itself. So front curtain and rear curtain is really about the sync going on with your strobe, not about taking a photo. Front curtain, shutter opens, the flash fires, then the shutter closes behind it. Rear curtain, shutter opens, and then as it closes, the flash fires. What does this allow for? So let's say you were shooting at a slower shutter. Let's say you were shooting at a full 1 second. It's dark out, it's night out, you're doing a long exposure. Open, 1 second passes, then the flash fires, then you close the shutter. So let's say I had someone doing motion. The flash would fire at the end of the movement. So it's a sync thing. It's synchronizing with the strobe in reality. Joe McNally shoots a lot on rear sync because he likes a little bit of motion in his images, but he's also controlling where things are frozen from the strobe. So that was an extremely exhausted, bad explanation of this, but I hope it makes some sort of sense. I don't know. Saturday night, man. I should be hitting Tinder, man. Was that all right? All right. Guys, don't forget to join the Discord. Discord. Hit the link in the description. Join the Discord. Go to the rules. Hit OK. Accept the rules. And share some work, talk some nerd gear stuff, ask some questions if you're having problems with anything. Anybody who's starting out, get in my Discord. Anyone who's a veteran, get in my Discord. You guys are crazy if you're not in my Discord. Ladies and gentlemen, get in the Discord. Follow me at Last X Witness on all social, and check out my work on Instagram. Join me on Twitter for some chat, and you guys are already here on YouTube. Please hit subscribe if you haven't already. I am so close to 11,000 subscribers. I would really like to get there before the end of the year. I am like 40 people away from 11,000, which is nothing in YouTube language. 11,000 is like a micro channel. I am nothing. I am no one, but I do it for you guys. All right, guys. Listen, if I don't talk to you, if I don't go live, I hope you guys have a great new year. Have some great holidays. Let's make 2023 not toxic, a strong community. Let's get better than we were here right now. I will see you over there. My name's Seth Miranda, Last Witness. And you've been watching me live for way too long, so go get yourself a life. Mwah. Bye, guys.